let's start off in the Eastern Conference. We got the Cavs and the Heat. In this series, I'm going to take Cleveland in 5, only because Cleveland has shown their dominance all season long on both sides of the floor. Offensively, you got Spida, you got Darius Garland, and I like that duo between Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. They've done a fantastic job of playing alongside each other. And off the bench, you got DeAndre Hunter. Realistically, the real pressure on this Cleveland team is the fact that they played well all season long. Now it's time for them to rise to that occasion in the postseason. Can they reach more than just the conference finals? We'll see over the course of this postseason how they fare. In the first round, I think they handle business against a Miami team who is coming off probably their weakest year in the last decade or so. Next, in the 4-5 matchup, we got the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. This is a rematch from last year. Unfortunately, Milwaukee did not have Giannis throughout that whole entire series, and then, if I'm not mistaken, Dame went down 2 or 3 games into the series. This is a chance for them to get some revenge. Giannis is healthy. Dame recently just got clear of the blood clot situation he was dealing with, so he should be back at some point during the series. Indy is a team who has postseason experience. They reached the conference finals just last year, and this year they're a much better team, at least defensively speaking, and I think largely that's due to having Benedict Mathurin. My biggest worry for the Pacers is whether or not Tyrese Halliburton is going to be aggressive as a scorer. We know what he could do as a facilitator. When the Pacers are at their best, to me, it's Tyrese Halliburton having that balance of a scoring attack along with getting his teammates involved. In the games that Indy lost last year, a lot of those games, Tyrese did not score more than 10, maybe even 15 points. So I think that will be an X factor throughout the course of this series. Then on the Milwaukee side, I want to give some credit to them, but I did not have a good feeling about this organization going into this season. I thought that this might be a make or break year, and in some ways it kind of still is. They were fortunate to add Kyle Kuzma. He definitely gives them some more length and he gives them some shooting. And overall this season, Milwaukee's been one of the top 3-point shooting teams. With all that being said, I'm going to take Milwaukee in 6. I think the Bucks are the more experienced team, and I think they're a more complete team. Although Indy's going to have home court advantage, I believe that with Dame coming back and Giannis leading the charge, this team will find a way to reach the second round. Next, we got Boston versus the Orlando Magic. I'm going to take the Celtics in 5. No disrespect to Orlando. I think this is a young team who does not get its flowers nearly enough. Offensively, they're not a good team. Paulo needs to develop that jumper to elevate his game to the next step. Franz Wagner, who is supposed to be a good 3-point shooter, is struggling over the last 2 years. And outside of that, they just don't get consistent shooting from beyond the perimeter. However, with their defense, that will allow them to make this series and at least some games competitive. We know that the Boston Celtics offensive game plan is going to be around taking a lot of threes. So to me, what will be interesting throughout this series is whether or not Orlando can run Boston off the 3-point line and force them into taking more 2s than 3s. But we've seen throughout this Celtics run over the last 2 seasons that they will get what they want, however they want on the offensive side, especially when you got that many weapons. You got Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, and I'm going to mention Jaylen Brown, but that brings me to my next point, is whether or not Jaylen Brown's going to be healthy enough to truly contribute, because I'm expecting him to be the primary defender on Banchero. And keep in mind, going into this postseason, he's dealing with that knee injury. That concerns me a little bit, because if he's not as effective as he was last year, they lose a crucial defender and then they lose a second scoring option. However, with all that being said, I'm going to stick with my Celtics pick. The Orlando Magic's struggling offense is going to really hamper them against a team who is one of the best offenses of all time. And then to close it out in the first round of the Eastern Conference, we got the New York Knicks going up against Detroit basketball. Shout out to Piston fans. You guys deserve this, because I'm not going to lie, it was looking real grim. The success that this team is having this year is tremendous to see, and I hope that it carries on, because the league needs meaningful Detroit basketball. This is definitely the most anticipated series out east. We got a Pistons team, as I mentioned, who's showing great promise against a New York Knicks team who, coming into the season, trading for Mikal Bridges, and then trading for Cat before training camp. There's a ton of expectations on this team to, at the very minimum, get to the conference finals. You look at the season series between these two teams, Detroit won it 3-1. What stood out to me outside of Cade Cunningham doing star-like things is the fact that Jalen Duren, someone who is, in my eyes, an underrated big man, not only was he able to be an efficient rebounder, he was also a scoring option, being involved in the pick and roll, getting second chance points. I think that matchup is an underrated X factor because we know that Cat, although 7 foot, is more of an offensive threat. Defensively, he could give you some bright moments, but overall, you're relying more heavily on him to produce on the offensive end. Mitchell Robinson, can he stay healthy? Can he give you good minutes? Because you're going to need him to either cancel out or neutralize Jalen Duren. And then going back to Cade Cunningham, he averaged almost 35 points a game. Who's going to take that defensive responsibility? More than likely, they're going to throw a combination of defenders, with the primary one being Mikal, because Mikal can match them in terms of quickness out there in the perimeter, along with the size and athleticism. But overall, it's just going to come down to whether or not the Knicks can show their defensive grit from last year in this series. I already know what I'm going to get from Jalen Brunson. I know what should be expected of Cat. The role players. The role players got to do their thing. And I'm looking primarily at Mikal. He's got to find his jump shot. They're going to double Brunson. They're going to double Cat. He has to be ready, whether it be in the corner, coming off of a cut, or going into the mid-range. Mikal Bridges is a solid mid-range jump shooter. However he gets it, he has to be ready for those moments. And lastly, coming off of the bench, who's going to step up alongside Deuce McBride? The Knicks lack depth. That's probably the biggest concern going into this series. All that being said, I'm going to take the Knicks in 7. This Detroit team is super young. They're inexperienced. I think even with that inexperience, they can take this Knicks team to 7. And that's largely because we don't know what we're going to get from the Knicks, a team who's underperformed against the better teams all season long. I'm going to lean on the Knicks finding a way to win this series and get to the second round. They got Jalen Brunson. They got Cat, one of the best big men to ever shoot the basketball. Moving on to the Western Conference, OKC versus Dallas. And in that matchup, I'm going to take OKC in a gentleman's sweep. With this historically great Oklahoma defense, they should be able to feast upon them and handle business. And now for my personally most anticipated series, I got my LA Clippers versus the Denver Nuggets. Arguably, the Clippers are the hottest team coming into the playoffs. Number 1 in net rating. Number 1 in half-court defense. Number 3 in defense overall this year. And their offense has improved. A concern I had coming into this year, and even when they were getting hot, was whether or not that offense was going to stay hot. And right now, they've just found a way to gel. And that's largely because Kawhi is healthy. And he's starting to find his game. For all my Clipper fans, we remember, what was that, 2021? The year where we went to the conference finals? Kawhi was just like this. He was different. When it came to those close games, he was automatic. Then you got James Harden. He is the heart and soul of this squad. Without James Harden, we would be nowhere close to the 5th seed. Ivica Zubac. Shout out to Big Zoo. He has improved tremendously. He's gone from someone who was like a solid rim protector to being someone who is at the forefront of our defense. And then offensively, he's improved drastically. He's gotten a chance to work in the post. He's gotten a chance to make decisions out of the pick and roll. And I think that's allowed our offense to be unlocked as well during this run. And I expect him to be massive here in this series going up against Jokic. Now let's get into Denver, a team who is coming into the playoffs a little limp. Although coming in with a 3-game winning streak, the vibes in Denver just don't feel right. They fired Mike Malone. They fired their GM, Calvin Booth, 3 games before the start of the NBA playoffs. You have a first-time head coach and interim head coach, David Alderman. That's going to be intriguing as he's going up against one of the best coaches in the league, Tyronn Lue, someone who is capable of making those quick adjustments. And it's going to be intriguing whether or not there's going to be a coaching disparity. And then how healthy is Jamal Murray? He's coming off that hamstring injury. He's dealt with that in the past. Can he be healthy? Can he be effective in this series against the Clippers? Because Jokic needs that number 2. Not to mention that pick and roll with him and Murray is lethal. And then lastly, what is their depth looking like? You got Russ, Peyton Watson, and maybe Julian Strother. I'm not sure if he's falling out of the rotation. Realistically, the rotations get tighter in the postseason, but you're going to need a player who can spell you 5 to 10 minutes in a series to help swing the series in your direction. All that being said, y'all know the saying, clip gang or don't bang. I'm taking the Clippers in 6. They have one of the best defenses in the league right now. Is it going to be an easy series for the Clippers? No. Denver is a proven champion. They have a championship pedigree. They got guys who aren't just going to quit. However, I like our chances because our defense is so solid, and Denver's defense is at the bottom of the league right now. In the 2-7 matchup out west, we got the Houston Rockets going up against the Golden State Warriors. This is going to be a physical, in-your-face, nasty series. Both of these teams don't like each other. For Houston, they've had so much success this year. I'm just concerned about the experience from the players. Yes, they got Jeff Green. They got Fred VanVleet. I guess Dylan Brooks, although his playoff success is spotty for those younger guys. Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Sengun. How are they going to play in the postseason? Not to mention, they don't have a real closer. Their closest player is Jalen Green. He's still learning how to get the best shot in crunch time. That can hurt them because those type of possessions will dictate the outcome of this series. For Golden State, I'm not going to lie, I need to give them a bit of an apology because when the trade initially happened, most like everyone in the media and just fans in general, were like, I like Jimmy Butler, but how's Jimmy Butler and Steph going to work as a duo? And credit to them, they made it work seamlessly. You got Jimmy Butler. Because he's able to get to the free throw line, it gives guys like Steph a chance to rest and get their legs underneath them. That's why Steph has been able to have these massive explosions in the fourth quarter where he's dropping 15, 20 points, delivering haymakers and ripping the hearts out of opposing teams. And then the most essential component of this whole entire Warriors team, Draymond Green, is he going to be able to not get himself in compromising positions? Because if he gets ejected in the game, if he gets suspended during the course of the series, can that hurt this Warriors team and prevent them from reaching the next round? Although I know a lot of you guys are not going to like this, Draymond is the second smartest player in the NBA right now, right behind LeBron James. They need that out of Draymond so that they can be at their best defensively and be able to run that offense. I'm going to take the Warriors in 6. I can see this being a 7-game series because Houston is hard-nosed, gritty team. However, I'm going to lean towards 6 because of the experience factor lying heavily with the Golden State Warriors. I believe having the duo of playoff Jimmy and playoff Steph is going to be the difference maker in this series. We got the Los Angeles Lakers against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is one that low-key can go either way. I'll start off with the Wolves. The key component that I'll be watching for throughout the course of this series is whether or not Coach Finch can make an adjustment in the Luka pick and roll involving Rudy Gobert. Last year, Luka feasted on Rudy Gobert in the conference finals. What type of adjustment is Coach Finch going to do? Is he going to send a double? Is he going to have his on-ball defender try to get over the screen? I'm curious to see how they're going to offer some help for Rudy and try to protect him because I expect the Lakers and JJ Redick to take advantage of that. And then offensively, who's going to consistently step up night in and night out during the course of this series? You got Julius Randle, someone who has a spotty postseason career, unfortunately. Can he step up against his former team and rise to the occasion and be that second option, much like how Cat was? McDaniels, we know that he is a terrific defender, but can he be someone who can knock down his three-point shots at a consistent rate? Because when he's doing that, this Minnesota team is at its best. Can we get that version of DiVincenzo we saw last year in New York off the bench for Minnesota? For the Lakers, this is going to be either a Bron or an Austin Reeves series. And I say that because more than likely, one of those two are going to get the third best defender. Either way, for the Lakers to win this series, they're going to need one of those two between Bron and Austin Reeves to be averaging at least 20 alongside Luka. Because we can trust Luka is going to average close to 30 points. And then in this series, yes, the Lakers don't have depth at that center position, but I don't really think this is going to hurt them. Yes, they played Naz Reid, who I forgot about when I was discussing the offensive weapons for Minnesota. Naz Reid, yes, is going to be instrumental. But back to the Lakers, I don't believe center is going to really affect them as much in this series because Minnesota doesn't really run offense through Rudy Gobert. They can do what a lot of teams did when Rudy was in Utah and put in a small ball lineup and force Rudy Gobert to guard that corner three. We'll see what direction JJ goes in, but I wouldn't be surprised if he runs a lot of small ball, depending on whether or not the Lakers are able to be effective on the boards. I'm going to take the Lakers in 6, maybe 7, depends on what adjustments Coach Finch makes in that pick and roll with Luka. They got 2 of the best all-time performers in the postseason, and Braun and Luka. This is going to be a grinded out series, and I haven't really talked too much about Ant, but Ant is one of the ones. I know this is going to come with some controversy. Ant is the closest player to Michael Jordan, and I don't mean that in terms of his play style. I mean that in terms of his mentality. Anthony Edwards is going to get after whoever is the best player or players on the other side. That's Jordan-esque because Jordan had that fearlessness as well. Because of that, that's why I'm tempted to say this could be a 7-game series. But as it stands, I'm going to lean with the Lakers in 6. But I wouldn't be shocked if this series went to 7.